Hey everybody, welcome back to I Know a Guy. I'm Anthony, and this is the podcast where connections thrive. Each episode, we spotlight inspiring entrepreneurs, professionals, and individuals doing amazing things. Together, we'll grow your circle, spark collaborations, and discover new opportunities. Today, we're meeting Geoffrey Kent, a seasoned entrepreneur with over 40 years of experience helping businesses scale for exponential growth. As the founder of Think Big with Geoffrey Kent, he specializes in guiding entrepreneurs to align their passion with strategy, dominate their markets, and execute at a world-class level. How are you doing today, Geoffrey?
I'm doing well, and you?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain. We're starting the week off strong. 2025. We're into February now, so
Yeah,
hey, that's
go
something.
figure.
Yeah, it's
Looks
already
like the ball just dropped, yesterday, or at
it,
least it feels that way.
it really does. It's just like it just started. So I was excited to have you back on. A little bit of backstory here is I actually interviewed Jeffrey early in this stuff. So this is technically the second one I've done. It just disappeared. So I was going through my things. I'm like, where is he? Never seen him. Couldn't find it. So here we are again, round two. But good news is it's a little bit more, I'm not going to say professional, better than it was then. So that's a benefit. So to start off, where are you located? Where are you calling in from?
I am in suburban Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. You been there forever or are you newer to the area?
No, no, I'm a military brat, so I've lived four continents, 10 of the 50 U.S. states. But I came here to go to graduate school in 1990 and have I left for a very brief period of time, but for the most part, I've been here since 1990.
Gotcha. Awesome. So yeah, you're basically, a lifer at this point, being there
Yeah,
that long.
yeah.
If you have friends coming into town that have never been there, where are you taking them? What are you doing? And where are you guys going for dinner?
Wow. I've actually never had anyone come to, to visit in Philly that wants me to do a tour. Because when I lived in New York, lived in Niagara Falls, other places, people have done that, and usually I'm pretty deliberate about how I kind of indoctrinate someone to a city. So what I normally do is I almost interview the person to get to understand what they're passionate about, and then I pick places to go see that will allow their passion to kind of come out. So so I don't really take people to the same places all the time, but I mean Philadelphia has so much historical significance in terms of the United States. So you're gonna be hard pressed not to do the Independence Hall, Betsy Ross's house, Liberty Bell, that all those types of things. Fortunately, that they're all within walking distance of each other. But outside of that, I mean, the other big thing that literally everyone that comes to Philadelphia, they're like, I want to eat a Philly cheesesteak. You know, so it's figuring out of all the cheesesteak places they could go to, which one do I take them to?
Oh,
So
absolutely. I'm gonna need recommendations because that's
yeah,
why I want to go to Philly. Yeah, all the stuff is great. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
The Philly
yeah,
cheesesteaks, oh
yeah,
man,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to visit. So yeah, I'll have to talk offline about
yeah,
specific places to visit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
awesome.
Unfortunately, there are several very good cheesesteak places, so it's kind of unless someone's staying for a week and wants to go eat cheesesteak every day, it's kind of hard to okay, if I'm only going to go to a cheesesteak place once, where do I take them? And it's incredibly difficult to do. So
I'm gonna go for a weekend and go to
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
So that's just me. So awesome, awesome. Well, what can you tell us about what you do?
So I'm semi-retired, I will say that. So over 5 decades, I've literally launched more than 20 ventures. I started in with a corporate career as well. So I've worked for Xerox, AT&T. 11 years into my career, went back, got an MBA from the Wharton School of Business, which is why I came to Philly. Um, Worked for Julius Dr. J. Irving out of Wharton, and then went to Deloitte Consulting. So while I was, and this was up until the age of 41, I had a full-time corporate career with all those different places, and was dabbling in entrepreneurship part-time the entire time. And so I was unsuccessful in entrepreneurship, doing stuff part-time, but I loved it. And I was really successful in corporate America, but hated it. So at 41, I basically made the decision to be happy versus being rich, and so I left corporate America behind and decided to pursue entrepreneurship full time. And it's actually one of the best decisions I've made in my life because every venture has been successful post the age of 41, doing these things, doing this part time. Every successive venture has been more successful than the previous. And my last company was a private cloud computing information technology support service company. I sold that 12 years ago, and have spent the last 12 years really just mentoring other entrepreneurs. So what I do is, I particularly did this with this last tech venture. I actually, you know, took the time to go back to graduate, well, I wasn't going back to school, but I went back to Penn's campus, and one of my majors was actually entrepreneurial management at Penn. And I sat down with my five professors and kind of asked them the same question. The question was, if you were to give me one piece of advice that if I implemented it would maximize the probability I'd succeed in this venture, what would that advice be? And so I had five incredible conversations. Each professor gave me a litany of books they wanted me to read about scaling exponential business growth. So I took the time to read the books. By the time I finished the last book, it kind of occurred to me, it's like you've been reading the same book over and over and over again. Successful entrepreneurs attribute the same things to their success. So that got me curious. So now I sit down with a pen and piece of paper and I'm jotting down all these repetitive themes that I had read about. And then, I still wasn't a believer. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do with this new venture, I'm going to actually deliberately infuse all of these traits into the business just to see what happens, right? So I did this, and lo and behold, everything worked, right? So when I sold the business 12 years ago, I sat down and basically said, I was mentoring other entrepreneurs, and every single entrepreneur kept telling me, you need to write a book. You have way too much knowledge in your brain. You need to share it with the entrepreneurial community. Best way to do that is to write a book. So I started down the process of writing a book. Um, my publisher introduced me to a company in Seattle, Washington that takes author content and converts it into online coursework. So the owner of the company said, Jeff, stop writing your book. Young people don't like to read. They need to be entertained with videos. No, by the way, you're narrating this course and you have to write all the dialogue for narration. So by the time we finish, you'll have all the material you need for your book anyway. So I pivoted, built this online course. It's a 7-week self-paced online course. And then I had a focus group take the course. And the feedback I got was, we love the course, but no one knows who you are. So you need to work on personal branding. And basically, and the other piece of advice they gave me was, you know, it would be so much easier to sell this course if you had a book, you know. And so I'm like, well, that's where I started. So I'm actually, I've already written my first book. It hopefully will be in print within the next 1 to 2 months. It's actually an illustration now. So that's kind of what I do is, and I apologize for the long answer, but what I do is I just mentor other entrepreneurs. I understand that there is a blueprint for entrepreneurial success. I know what that is. And that's, for any entrepreneur, it's easy to find, it's easy to understand. It's incredibly difficult to implement, right? So, but I found the key to that is taking the time to understand what your strengths, weaknesses are, building the blueprint to your strengths and likes, and outsourcing everything else. So what I do is I really work with an entrepreneur to understand, what are your strengths, weaknesses, likes, dislikes. Let's take this blueprint and let's customize it to your strengths and likes, because that's going to give you a much higher probability for success.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I love that because I've been noticing that having conversations with as many
Yeah.
entrepreneurs as I have been is there's definitely reoccurring themes when you ask them, what are you doing? What's been working? What advice would you give? There's definitely the reoccurrences that you're like, there's definitely something to that,
Yeah.
and then just paying attention, right? And then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and,
No, no, I mean there's a reason why, they say 80% of all, startups fail. Well, when you ask the entrepreneur, him or herself, they'll, you're going to get a litany of reasons. Literally 50% of them usually have something to do with lack of access to capital, some iteration of that. But I always tell entrepreneurs the only reason you fail is because you're not executing. There is a formula again to everything, right? So even something like, hey, well, I can't get, no one will give me any money. Well, there's a blueprint to raising capital. If you take the time to figure out what kind of deal you have, and then align that deal with someone predisposed to do the type of deal you have an incredibly high probability of getting capital, right? But we're not taught about finance. We're not taught about the financial service industry. So the average entrepreneur is just really when they're out there trying to raise capital, they have no idea what they're doing, no idea who they're talking to, who they should be talking to, and so what you end up doing is, okay, well, hey, I need X amount of dollars. I have my business plan. Let me just throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. So they talk to everybody, and they end up wasting a ton of time, of valuable time, because you can't get your time back, talking to people who they were never going to do the deal in the first place, right? So, if instead of doing all of that, you just took the time to figure out, what kind of deal do I have, and who's the investor that actually does this type of deal? Let me only talk to those people, right? It's really not that difficult to do.
Yeah. A lot of us get in our own ways with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
okay. What do you love about what you're doing?
Um, what I really love, to be perfectly honest with you, because I've always been fascinated with. I'm not motivated by money, and I don't get excited by money. I'm interested in the process of how money is made, right? So I love running businesses. So for me, where I gets a ton of enjoyment out of what I do is actually seeing entrepreneurs realize their entrepreneurial vision, whatever that is. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just when someone comes to me with a dream and I'm able to help them realize that dream, that's incredibly exciting, right? So that's at this stage of the game, I don't need to accomplish anything more in my career. I've done enough for 100 people. So if I die tomorrow, hopefully I don't, but if I do, I'll be very happy with what I've accomplished. So at this point, I just want to help others. Entrepreneurship is incredibly difficult, and so if someone's crazy enough to do what I've done, made a career doing, I just want to help them be successful.
Yeah, I really like that because the people that are motivated by money, they're never going to have enough. But the
Yeah,
people that are motivated by something else, and then one of the byproducts is money, that's great, right? Because then
yeah,
you can go do that and you can get really, really good at that thing, better than
right,
anybody.
yeah.
So yeah, no, awesome. That's fantastic. Um, you're kind of the best person to ask this just because of, your history and everything that you've seen. What do you say is one of the biggest common mistakes people are making starting off as an entrepreneur?
So I don't know if I can narrow it down to one. There are a couple things that are pretty typical in terms of mistakes entrepreneurs make. So one of them is, and I think you had alluded to this a little bit earlier. We tend to not be able to get out of our own way, So and part of what happens is you're not listening, right? So there are all kinds of psychological reasons why we do what we do, but part of the process is being humble enough to understand that you don't know everything, right? And you never will, right? So and there's nothing wrong with that, and so what a lot of entrepreneurs don't do is they don't reach out for help, right? We all need help, because again, we don't know everything. There's a saying that you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with, right? So, what that's getting at is that if you wanted to be a successful entrepreneur, you would find five incredibly successful entrepreneurs to spend all of your time with, and because then you can see what they do, you can replicate what they do, and guess what? You'll have the same level of success they had, you know. So with entrepreneurs, it's again, understanding that entrepreneurship is a lot like selling, right, and I started my career selling. So there are career paths where you're going to hear no a lot more than you're going to hear yes, right, and disproportionately, a high percentage of no's versus yeses. And so you have to not only have a thick skin, but you have to be wired a certain way to be able to, every single day hear no 100 times, hoping to get that one yes, right? And you really have to, what I did, particularly when I was in selling, I converted the word no into not today. And that's what allowed me to keep coming back, and but you have to do that. And but that can be incredibly defeating. And and so a lot of people, struggle with entrepreneurship because, you know, in, the harshness of it and the difficulty associated with it. But if you can weather through that, it's all about, hey, you're going to get hit, knocked down a lot of times, and but you have to get up, dust yourself off, and keep going, right? And knowing you're going to get hit and knocked down again. But eventually there's going to be a payoff. And so there, in order to be able to weather all of that, there's also a level of arrogance that you have to have, because arrogance from the standpoint of, a huge belief in yourself, right? And maybe arrogance isn't the right word, but you just have to really, really believe in yourself, and know that, no matter how deep the depths get, that you're going to be able to pull yourself out of it, and so um, yeah. So when you think that way, when you think a lot of yourself and think a lot of your capabilities, it's easy to not listen, when people try to give you advice, but you have to listen because you're never going to learn everything. So that's probably one really huge thing is just being able to ask for help and then being able to listen, actually listen, when the help is being given, so that you can be the best person you're here to be.
That's a lot of great advice. Knowing that you don't know what you don't know, you might be hyper competent at plumbing, but the rest of
Yeah,
it, are you good at it as you start? You've never done it before, probably not.
yeah,
And then, like you said, your network is your net worth, or you're the average of the five people that you're around the most time. Your network is, there are a bunch of
yeah,
cliches surrounding that, right? So
yeah,
there's
yeah,
probably
yeah,
something there. And then, like what you said, you're gonna face no's, you're gonna have adversity, you're gonna fall on your face a bunch of times, probably, unless you're very, very lucky.
yeah.
But if I told you, hey, all you have to do to be successful is go fail 10 times, and then your
Right.
11th time you're going to be successful. How fast would you do that if you knew the outcome was going to be success?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So it's just having that kind of mindset, knowing that, okay, this might not work, but I'm going to try really hard and I'm going to learn from it, and I'm going to try again and again and again. And then, like you
Yeah,
said, a little bit of arrogance, a little bit of ego there, where you're like,
yeah, yeah.
okay, I can do it.
Well, even when you think of something as simple as, again, hey, you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. So again, if your goal was to be a successful entrepreneur, the easiest way to do that would be to surround yourself with five incredibly successful entrepreneurs. That's not a difficult concept. It's like, okay, let me find five really successful entrepreneurs and just spend all my time with them. There's nothing complicated about that, right? But we don't do it, you know? It's 99.9% of entrepreneurs don't do it,
Yep.
and it's not rocket science. So, but that's the reason they don't do it is because, it's like, this doesn't make a lot of sense. Won't make a lot of sense to you and me, but this is the average entrepreneur. If the average entrepreneur, you put him in the room with Bill Gates, and the average entrepreneur is not going to say much, just think of how crazy that is. This is one of the most successful entrepreneurs of all time. If you actually had, 30 minutes of his time in a room with no one else in the room, you could ask him anything. Why would you not say anything? You know,
Yeah.
I mean, and you're an entrepreneur wanting to be a successful entrepreneur. You've got this person who can provide so much knowledge, but you can't get any words out, you know? It's like that makes no sense whatsoever. But I guarantee you, if we put that experiment together, 99 out of 100 times, what would happen is the entrepreneur in the room with Bill Gates wouldn't say much.
And I don't know why that is, because if somebody came up to you, just as your average entrepreneur and said, "Hey, I want to ask you some questions about how you became successful," you're blushing, you're all swollen
Yeah,
up, you're you're
yeah,
you're enjoying that. Entrepreneur, we kind of like talking about ourselves. There's definitely
yeah,
that too. So
right.
be willing to kind of leverage that. People, that are successful, just ask them questions, let them talk, don't interrupt. They're there. Uh, and they'll go as long as you let them talk a lot of times. So just do that. So that's awesome. That's fantastic advice.
Yeah, or the other thing they do, excuse me, is they get in the room and they're going to ask Bill Gates, "How's the weather?" You know, it's like you have this incredibly successful entrepreneur. That's what you want to, this has nothing to do with your business. Ask something that you can get some advice that you can actually help to move your business forward, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that 1% entrepreneurs that would are just screaming at
Yeah.
the opportunity. Why are you asking about the weather? So
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I mean, the I mean, it's like an obstacle that you're facing and say, Bill, have you ever faced this particular obstacle? And if you have, how did you overcome it? Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's a much better question to ask than, how's the weather? But
Yeah. Your phone's gonna tell you that. So
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, right, right, right.
so awesome. Well, what is like the average pain points that somebody's going through that if they're dealing with XYZ, you're the person that they should be talking to?
Um, so, what I really do is going back to the average entrepreneur is going to have difficulty raising capital because they don't understand the capital raising process, right? So my I help in a lot of areas, but one of the things that I really try to help entrepreneurs with is in the capital raising process. So what I do is I help them build fundable business plans, I teach them how to do this because you should write your own plan, but I teach them how to build fundable plans to get the money they need to grow their business so that they can get to a desired exit, whatever that exit might be. We all are trying to build something different and no one person's goal is no more important than the other. Our goal is of most importance to us, but so it doesn't matter what that goal is. It's just let's understand what the goal is and let's put together a plan that actually gets you capital so that you can get to whatever that desired exit is.
Okay. What are your average power partners look like? Where have you found a lot of success as far as collaborating with other entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so I don't collaborate with entrepreneurs per se. What I do is I spend virtually all of my time on alignable.com, right? So because it's an entrepreneurial platform, right? It's a social media site, but it's a social media site dedicated to entrepreneurs, and you know. I didn't realize this at the time. My branding agency asked me to focus on Alignable because they liked the platform, liked the philosophy of the platform, and liked where it was going and how it was growing. And so I told them, okay, fine, I'll concentrate. So their goal was, concentrate on Alignable, engage on Alignable until you become a dominant voice on Alignable. And then, if you wanted to, expand and go on to some other platforms, we can do that. But we want you to have kind of this home where people know who you are. And so that made a lot of sense to me. So what I do there is, I've got my own group that I call Entrepreneur University. I just last month became an ambassador locally in the Philadelphia area for Alignable, and then I post content daily on Alignable in a variety of different places on the platform. Just really just simple one sentence questions that entrepreneurs should be asking themselves. So I'll ask something simplistic like, have you ever raised angel investor capital? And if you have, how did you go about doing it? Right. And my thought process is, you know, someone from Alignable, they told me there are a little over 9 million entrepreneurs on the platform. What was significant to me about that was, because the platform's only in North America, so the United States and Canada. I know that there's 25 million entrepreneurs in the United States, and just based on the population of Canada versus US, adding, extrapolating what I think the entrepreneurial population of Canada is, which is probably between 2 and 3 billion. You've got, let's say, 27 million entrepreneurs in Canada and the United States. Well, if 9 million of them are on Alignable, one out of every three entrepreneurs in Canada and the United States is on Alignable, you know. So, there is no social media platform that I'm aware of that has that high of a percentage of the target population, that they're targeting on their platform. So, so, um, so for me, it's just, get on this platform, produce content as a way to get known better. 'Cause I'd mentioned earlier that, I had people take my course and, and they said, no one knows who you are. So this is like, okay, well, how can I become better known? Oh, well, if I pick this platform called Alignable that has that predominantly targets entrepreneurs, and I become a dominant voice on that platform, it gives me a stage to do more things, right, for the entrepreneurial community. And as I said, when I produce content, just again, a simple question. If my thought is if 1% of the population on the platform sees my content, um, which would be 90,000 entrepreneurs, and 1% of those people actually respond, which would be 900 entrepreneurs, and so these numbers are probably inflated. But even if it was 1/10 of 1%, every question that I asked would get nine responses. And so for me, it's like, well, if I can ask a question like, have you raised angel investor capital? And if you have, how'd you go about doing it? And I know that there are at least nine entrepreneurs on the platform that have done that successfully. If they can weigh in and give that, give their input on the process and how they went about it and how they were successful, now they're educating the entire platform on that particular question. So that, again, how this is my way of adding value. Um, Again, asking questions that entrepreneurs should be asking themselves, being humble enough to throw them out there, and hopefully uh, they're good enough questions that people want to answer and provide feedback. And through those answers, you're educating the entire platform.
Okay. How can business owners turn their passion into a market dominating strategy?
Um, yeah, so I think what you have to do is you have to figure out where so it's all about laser focusing, right? Initially before you try to expand, but it's figuring out where do you fit in the marketplace, right? So I always ask three questions of entrepreneurs to help them with this is commonly called value proposition, but it's understanding how you add value, where you add value, and who you add value to. So I'll always ask, question one. It's does anyone do what you do anywhere in the world today? Yes or no? And I always tell them the answer to that question is always yes. But then the follow-up question is, is everyone who could um, be serviced or purchase your product or service, are they being serviced by someone, one of your competitors, anywhere in the world today? Yes or no? Um, and that question, you could say no. I actually know a segment of the population that's not being served. And I always stop people and say, okay, that's your value proposition. What I want you to do, I want you to focus your business on only serving that population, whoever it is, that isn't being served, right? With the product or service you market. And then, but if they say yes, I think everybody's being served. My last question is everyone happy with the service they're getting? And yes or no. And if they say no, again, we can stop. That's your value proposition. Focus on the people who aren't happy, and service them one of three ways. Either, differentiate yourself through speed of service, through price of service, or through the comprehensiveness of the service you provide, right? And there are specific business models that I can tell people around each one of those concepts that will help them understand how they go about doing this. But if on the other hand they said, hey, what I do is not unique. There are other vendors out there. Everyone's being served and everyone's happy. Then my advice is shut your business down and do something else because you can't add value, right? So in terms of how you take your concept, your idea, and commercialize it successfully, it's around finding it's around solving a problem for someone, even if it's one person, and then leaning in on that so that you become known as the person who does X for Y, you know, for Y customer. Before you start to expand your business, this is a hard concept for entrepreneurs to grasp because typically when we venture into entrepreneurship, we might have left a good job and we have lots of bills to pay and no money. So what you fall into the trap of doing is trying to be everything to everybody, and that's the easiest way to fail.
Okay. Well, with 40 years of experience, I'm sure that we could go on for a little while longer. When it comes to entrepreneurship, there's a lot of areas that we could cover, but is there anything that I missed that you really wanted to add?
No, not really. You've done as an interviewer, you've done a great job. So.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. But for people out there that have more questions, maybe they're that 1% that they want to talk to Bill Gates, how can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
So my website is www.thinkbig with Geoffrey Kent. Jeffrey is spelled with a G, EOFFREY.com. That's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me. From there, on the website, there are lots of ways to connect with me, from there.
Perfect. Well, if anybody would like to do that, I'm going to put all of it in the show notes so it's super easy to find. So we just
Yeah,
click and go. Just
yeah.
copy and paste it, right? That's how
Yeah,
how
yeah,
I do it.
yeah. I mean, I'm on most social media platforms. I've already mentioned Alignable. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. So yeah, and Quora. So if you anyone that's on any of those sites, just look up Jeffrey Kent or Think Big with Jeffrey Kent, and you'll find me.
Perfect. Well, if anybody would like to get a hold of Jeffrey, absolutely do it. You're going to walk away knowing more than you did going in. If you listen to this whole thing, you're definitely leaving with a lot of great insights. Because 40 years of experience running multiple successful businesses, and then doing that for a living now, where you're helping others do it. There's a lot there, and to your point, when we started, there's definitely right things to be doing in every business. So making sure that you're taking those right steps is super, super important. So absolutely reach out and have that conversation. If anybody would like to get a hold of me, you can find me at ikag.me. You can find more episodes, subscribe to our newsletter, and connect with our growing community of awesome people like Jeffrey. If you or somebody would like to be interviewed, you can also apply on the website. But Jeffrey, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate this. Sorry again that the first one didn't take, but here we go. I
Yeah,
think the second
yeah.
one was even better. So
Not a problem. Thank you for having me on and introducing me to your audience.
yeah, it was awesome. So let's all go out, have a great day, and grow our circle. All right.